So what is one way you were changed by White Fragility, I'm Still Here, or 40 Days of Prayer, the books that we used for this course?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Laura.
I think that in D'Angelo's book, White Fragility, what struck me was the effort that you take to defend yourself against any charges of not necessarily racism, but white advantage that you could be putting into listening and changing your behavior. So that I do have a tendency, and it's not only in this issue, always feeling like a wounded deer that I have to defend myself. My girls have pointed that out to me. So I think for this book, she really convinced me that you just sit with it, and you don't, it would be advantageous for me not to try and defend myself and try to walk around an issue that I might, have shown that I had some racist tendencies. I don't know if that makes any sense. I kind of went on and on.
Thank you. Marge?
Related to that, I was struck by how many times it was said in different ways that people of different races just don't bring it up because it's too hard. And they just, let it go because they don't want to fight. And white people are very tiring.
Thank you.
I was struck by how unaware I was of all the inbuilt white racial supremacy just built into our culture, just automatic, that we don't even think of or be aware of. Like Laura, I sort of thought I really wasn't very racist, but I discovered that there are just so many ways that without even realizing it, I have been.
Just
Thank you. Chuck, got your hand up? Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. Terry and then Chuck.
The 40 Days of Prayer and the little bios of each of the individual stories, the citing of the laws that change and how they've changed over the last 150 years. One in particular, I'm not sure whether it's the 17th or 19th Amendment granted the vote to women. And I always assumed that it was all women, but it wasn't until the Voting Rights Act of 65 that Black women were given the vote. And that was very interesting to me. And I thought it was indicative. People don't talk about it because there's a minority and they're Black.
Thank you. Chuck?
I started reading White Fragility. I was critical. I thought Robin DiAngelo was beating the same drum. It was selling woke to white suburban housewives. And it's like, doesn't everybody already know this? But then I realized, no, they don't already know this. And in the spring of 1966, my parents I was imbued with their vision of the world and their acceptance of racism and prejudice. And I was waiting for a letter, an appointment to either go to West Point or Kings Point. I thought I'd go back to West Point in New York. I wanted to go back to New York, really, finish my adolescence. And the letter came from Kings Point before West Point saying, you have 14 days to accept or decline. So I went there, and I didn't even know what Merchant Marine Academy was like. And my sophomore year, I sailed around the world, and I saw with my own eyes that so much I'd been taught by my government and my parents wasn't what I was seeing. And then over the 7 weeks I thought about it, that my parents would have trouble with reading Robin DiAngelo's book, and so would my brother, who was a colonel in Air Force intelligence, and that they were still trapped in their mindset, in their perspective. And I shuddered. There, but the grace of God, if I'd gone to West Point, I may not have become a doctor. I wouldn't have seen the world. I would have gone to Vietnam and maybe become a career soldier and wanted to be a general. And God gave me a different path, and I realized we have to help everybody awaken.
Dan?
To go along with that, I was amazed by the complexity of the establishment of racism that she's kind of exposed to us. And, you know, growing up in the West and not being associated with others, people of other colors and so on, I was just kind of immune to it all. So that exposure was quite significant to me.
Pat, and then Dee Dee.
These two books and other things that I've read and thought about have had a really, actually, quite a profound impact on me, and they really have changed the way I move through the world, because now I look at the interactions I have with other people, both whites and people of color, in very different ways, but particularly I always examine what has happened when I have an interaction with someone of color. I'm more aware of them, and I'm paying attention to how I am treating them and how I speak to them and how they respond to me. And it's endlessly enlightening. There are so many little ways. And I think one thing I'm learning is how easy it is to discount people with whom you have brief interactions, as opposed to seeing them, perhaps seeing Christ in them, but at least seeing them as people, individuals with a whole life. So it's really had quite a profound change on me, I think, in very basic ways.
Dee.
I think I was most moved by Austin Channing Brown's book. And now when I go about daily life and see a person of color, I've realized that they're having to navigate a white world 24/7. And I never realized that before. That the challenge that must take and the energy that must take. So I think that is, that book I found very, very moving, and really spoke to what I need to do, and in my interactions, just be very mindful of what someone of color, what they're having to deal with.
Mary.
Across all of the books, my total misunderstanding or unawareness of what people had to go through, whether they be slaves coming across the ocean, whether it be a master or a mistress of slave owners, how they were just degraded. And then after reading Austin Channing Brown's book, the quote or the sentence that sticks in my mind is, "Ain't no friends here." Mm-hmm. And that is just, that opened my eyes to put myself in different shoes, to say, look at it, how are they really feeling? And I've changed that way. Oh, well, no, I'm starting to change. I don't know is that I've come all the way.
Sue, you had your hand up.
Yes. I think what I've really learned as I've come to appreciate our biased culture, not appreciate it in that it's a good thing, but I've come to learn that we are raised in a biased culture. And as white people, it's easy for us to turn away from issues, especially issues, racial issues. But as has been commented on before, people of color don't have that option. They face this every single day in big ways and little ways. And I just think I've become more aware and sensitive to, hopefully, to their feelings, and I'll be able to respond to that when I'm in a position to make sure that I'm not the cause of more injury to them.
Marlene, and then Ramona.
So what I learned was that there actually is words and I guess a structure around things I've been thinking and feeling for years, but just didn't have a name to it or understood exactly what was driving it. And I think what this has done for me is it's reactivated a voice that says, I probably need to go look for opportunities where I can help facilitate more discussions. Because I think the openness of all of you and what we've been talking about is exactly where incremental change starts to happen. And where I probably was feeling about sometimes as hopeless, as Austin Channing Brown feels about the word called hope, part of me also feels a little bit hopeful that I think this feels different than it did 40 years ago. And I think I want to be part of those discussions that can help this along. So.
Ramona.
Well, again, well, as many of you have said, the Austin Channing Brown's book really brought home to me how much people of color have to make accommodations every day in every small way of their lives that I never did think about. I mean, I knew what some of the big things were just from working, you know, in an office where there were half white and half African American, a very open office about that, but not realizing what it's like every single day to accommodate every little thing that you're having to do and how much stress that could put on you. And it was kind of depressing to me to see how she feels about what hopefully what will happen and how long it will take. Particularly when she was quoting Ta-Nehisi Coates about that. And then I thought back the 40 days of prayer, all those little blurbs made me think back to when I was in second and third grade in Schenectady, New York, and we all learned how to sing the song, Follow the Drinking Gourd, and then why what that meant, just one part of what that meant, which was, yes, that's the thing that guided, that's the constellation that guided the slaves northwards to Schenectady and Syracuse and northern New York State, and then to Canada ultimately. But that part was never really explained, let's put it that way. What they were going through, or, you know, why it was that difficult.
So, Christoph, do you have a response to this question?
Well, like so many of you, I was not aware of my privilege. You know, I just went through life, and you know, it took these sessions and the books to read to realize how privileged I am. I never thought of white supremacy. When I heard that word, I thought, well, that was the, you know, neo-Nazis and those people. And reading these books, I realized, wow, you know, I'm part of that. I benefit from my whiteness. every single day of my life. It's a very mind-boggling and eye-opening experience to realize that when I leave the house and go somewhere, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about, will I come back? Will I be pulled over because of my skin color? Will I be mistreated because of my skin color? I mean, I'm choking up just talking about it. It's been a incredible awakening. And just because of your skin color, you don't know whether or not you will return after an outing. You don't know by, you driving down the street, you're going to get pulled over just because there's a skin color, nothing else. I know one of you shared that experience of I think a plumber or an electrician in Myrtle Beach, that could not go out at night anymore because he was afraid for his life being pulled over just for his skin color. Excellent business owner, sought after for his expertise. I mean, to me, it is very, very painful to learn all that and to see that this is still going on, 60 years after MLK. That is absolutely mind-boggling for me, and it's painful. So this was a really big awakening for me as well. So thank you all for you guys to share.
And Meg, you've probably read the books more than once and have been in the groups over and over again. I wonder if there's something new this time around.
Well, I don't want to, let me just get my book here. I memorized the page number, but you're right, Mary. I reread when I can. And I think the chapter that's especially important for us with this theme of opting in and opting out, I'll just give you the pages so you can reread it again yourself. Pages 146 and 147 in White Fragility. This is the paragraph that spoke to me after now being involved in this since February, on a definitely daily basis with a lot of wonderful people like you throughout the diocese. And Robin says, when I began this work, I dreaded getting feedback from people of color on my racist patterns and assumptions. Now I welcome this feedback. And that's where I am right now at St. Columba and everywhere. Perhaps the most powerful lesson I have learned in terms of interrupting my own white fragility is that this feedback is a positive sign in the relationship. And I'll just say that the more people trust me, I think at St. Columba and elsewhere, the more they're telling me more than what's even in Austin Channing Brown's book. In our town hall, we invited some Christ the King people to our town hall a couple weeks ago. And we have one parishioner who tells it like it is all the time. And Christ the King talked about that, how forthcoming he was. This was right after Kenosha, so it was particularly, the wound just keeps being ripped off, as they say. At our town halls often, well, it's Wednesday, what happened this week? And we need to hear this. We need to hear it. So I'll just say it's just everything you're all sharing is what St. Joan of Arc is saying, what St. John Vianney will be saying as they continue. It's Christ the King, St. Mary Magdalene, hold them in prayer. They just started. And I was last night on a call with another woman who's going to start this in Berkeley at Christ Church. It's a evangelical Presbyterian church, and she's a Black woman, and we had a wonderful discussion. So I just want to say thank you for doing this and recording it for your own benefit too, but also later on, JustFaith National would love to hear your in an email you'll see, but this is important, as Christoph said, and Jesus picked 12 people for a good reason. He knew it was just too hard to do alone. So keep on keeping on. Yeah.
Thank you. So I could really say ditto to what almost all of you said as far as my own learning. To emphasize one thing in particular, I thought that the learning about the binaries of racist or not racist and good and bad was very helpful to learn, that I can be a good person and be racist, and that I don't need to argue against the fact that I'm racist to try to defend the fact that I'm a good person, but can use feedback from people who will point that out to me to change. And so I thought that that was kind of a liberating idea that was presented, and very, very helpful for that reason. Certainly they were all good readings. Our next item of business is to plan for our future, parts 2 and 3. And a lot of you responded to emails. And I don't know if you want to keep recording or not.
I was just going to say I'm going to stop the recording now.